Hello everyone, this is Dylan, otherwise known as Lord of the Weebs, and welcome back to the first of possibly many reviews you will see on my channel. I decided, since my voice gets really strained after doing a playthrough of Doki Doki Literature Club, or similar, games, and since I can never get any actual time to record without a million interruptions, I finished the good ending of Doki Doki Outcast on my own time. And all I gotta say about it is, my god, that was a heck of a ride. Besides my obvious reactions in my own playthroughs that I have on my channel, I have a fair bit to say about this one ending alone, never mind the other two, which are, from what I've been told, the bad and the horrible endings. Then again, I don't have the guts to do those yet, and since really the only thing that changes in these three routes is the ending, I probably will not be making a video on those. However, next video should hopefully be a review of the Death Note series, so be on the lookout for that. As a reminder, I'd like to ask those of you who are interested to please subscribe and hit the bell to help out the channel. I also just recently released my own Patreon page, so go check that out too if you want. Now without further ado, let's get into the review proper. Keep in mind this is a review of the Doki Doki Literature Club mod Doki Doki Outcast and its good ending. Unless you played both or never intend to play either, please go play or watch both so you know the original story and the story of Outcast. This is your one and only warning, as spoilers for both Doki Doki Outcast and for Doki Doki Literature Club proper will be discussed in detail from here on out. Now, I may as well get the negative out of the way immediately, since there's only one in my opinion, and I want to focus more on the good bits of the mod, as it's overall very well made. And yes, I said negative, not negatives. Negative. Only one. My only issue stems from the suddenness of MC and Yuri confessing and dating. To me, it felt rushed and really forced. Of course, this is a mod, and the idea of a sort of love at first sight ideal is growing a lot more prominently thanks to the modern media, and it is starting to become more and more prevalent in the real world, so it's more of a nitpick based on my own personal experiences in falling for someone and working up that courage to confess. The situation that it happened in also hammered in that force feeling for me, though this is even more excusable since it was overall a very emotionally charged moment with more impulsive acts and thought out ones. Alright, nitpicking aside, let's talk about the major good points of the mod. The first thing that I like about Outcast is that it doesn't suffer too greatly from the community known Act 1 syndrome. For those that don't know, Act 1 syndrome is the fan term for Doki Doki Literature Club mods that pretty much keep the first act of the original game pretty much untouched in the mod, barring some minor adjustments to better fit the narrative. Outcast immediately throws a lot of Act 1 out the window with the introduction to Sayori and Yuri. In the discussion with Sayori at the beginning of the mod, it's made a point that Sayori and MC haven't talked about any clubs, or really anything MC does, outside of school for that matter. This is evidenced by Sayori's question and MC's inner dialogue about how he pretty much does nothing all day. This is further compounded by Sayori asking MC to think about possible clubs, and then dropping the literature club idea after that. The MC was completely unaware of this, and so when Sayori asks him to check it out, it gives off a completely different vibe than the original game. That, and Sayori uses the good old puppy dog eyes treatment instead of a cupcake bargain. Along with this, the mod has MC and Yuri meet before the literature club begins, running into one another on their way there instead of the generic introductions in the original game. It also personally feels a bit more natural and builds the school to feel more genuine and natural, since it would make sense that MC would want to get to the club as soon as possible. And since Yuri is also on her way there, it's a chance that they might collide. There are still bits here and there that are identical to or very similar to the original Act 1, but the amount of changes gives the act far more of a unique feel. That and the acts are all separated into multiple smaller chapters, which helps in keeping track of where in the narrative you are. The second point that I want to bring up is the voice acting. Here, take a listen.
I had a great time this weekend. I wanted to tell him how I felt, but I was too shy. He did say he wanted to see me more often, though. Is this my chance to make something happen between me and him?
The voice acting work by Angry Hedgehog is not just great in of itself, but is also a great addition to Outcast in general. The whole idea of every so often peering into Yuri's point of view to see how she feels is a breath of fresh air that you don't normally see done like this in the modding community. Most mods have some sort of dream point of view change or less convincing and more meme-ish methods of introducing such points of view, and it either comes off as too meme-ish or expositional or just overly contrived. The fact that this is introduced in such a way and the fact that it is so well acted, I think really shows the level of dedication that Matter, the creator of the mod, has to making this a good mod. And the choice in the voice itself was also great. I just very well enjoy how Angry Hedgehog is able to portray Yuri in such a convincing way with her voice. I also just want to say that the soundtrack was just as great, and I'm very happy with how it sounded as well, though not being a very into music kind of guy in terms of how it's being made and how it's used in sorts of narratives to further the mood. I'm not going to speak too much on that. Of course, you can't talk about Doki Doki Outcast without bringing up that. You know what I mean. The special CG. Yeah, that. Well, I don't know about you, but I loved it. But wait, hang on. Put down your pitchforks. Let me explain myself. It's obvious that most people would either really enjoy the CG or really dislike it, depending on how you feel about having a little bit of spicy hand holding in your mods. Whew. The mod is kind enough to let you know at the beginning of the act in the chapter that it's in that there's going to be such of a lewd scene, and you can choose to skip it. Though one personal suggestion I would have made would be similar to how Katawa Shoujo, another prominent visual novel game, did it, in which they had the option to opt in or opt out at any time in the settings menu. Aside from that, this scene was executed masterfully. The build up to it through MC and Yuri's relationship is really good, and the emotional event that just precedes it allow for it to be more of an in the heat of the moment kind of scene. And the scene is overall very passionate and handled with an incredible level of tact and respect that you rarely see in the modding community overall, what with all the shitposts and meme mods that tend to allude to sex in some way, shape, or form. Mattercrafter was very ballsy to even attempt this. And that alone gives him a lot of points in my eyes. Add that to the fact that the artist Fjord and Matter actually handled the scene with so much respect and gave it the proper treatment it deserved, making it real and not making it a laughingstock. It's amazing. It's 100 times better than I think anyone would have expected from it. The attempt was made, and the result was a major payoff in my eyes, and I greatly commend Matter and Fjord for making such a bold move and being able to pull it off so beautifully. Now, speaking of MC and Yuri's relationship, let's talk a little bit more about that. The MC and Yuri's relationship feels very natural outside of the initial confession, like I said before. The meeting is completely plausible and probably happens more than a lot of people think. I mean, let's be real, when you're going to the same place as someone else, you are bound to meet them if you are crossing paths in order to do so. Plus, you just meet people randomly in general, and sometimes you'll run into them. That's just how life is. We're not perfect. That and their friendship builds in a very satisfying and reasonable way that helps strengthen the two's bond before the big moment I just went on about for a good couple minutes. Yuri helping with MC's poem is the best example, while also being a great way to subvert the expectation of the poem game from the original Doki Doki Literature Club. Their relationship post-confession is also handled very well. Their interactions hardly change aside from being slightly more intimate and affectionate in physical action and in speech, which honestly should be how romantic relationships should be in my eyes. two very close people with the bonus of commitment to one another in a physical and emotional way. The vocal interactions themselves don't have to change all that much. The not safe for work CG and scene in of itself is a great climax for the romantic subplot, as it drives home just how close the two are to each other and how much they love and trust each other by that point. You may be thinking that I deduct points for a possible rush relationship, and while you may have a point there in terms of it being rushed, it's not all that uncommon anymore to see one-night stands, friends with benefits, and rapidly developing more than friends relationships pop up all over the place. Let's be real, humans are social creatures and emotional creatures. It's not all that unlikely that romantic relationships will develop faster and lead to more intimate relations earlier on. Whether or not it's a good choice is up to each individual and couple separately. Truthfully, I have no problem with the speed of the relationship, both applying the real world and the short time of the mod. To me, I think the way it was handled is very plausible in the real world. Now, to finish off my review, let's talk about the writing, more in depth. As I said earlier, the writing makes many of the situations feel more naturally occurring and less forced or rushed. The way the conversations and situations don't feel as much like plot armor or anything like that. I can realistically see the interactions and scenarios playing out in real life, though they might be a bit more convenient than expected of real life to throw at you. But that's eventually going to happen sooner or later. We all know it. The other major point are the choices that you have in the mod. For example, the very first choice you're given is during the iconic Natsuki Yuri skirmish. You have the choice to defuse the situation, remain quiet, or ask for help. All three of these choices seem to have their potential good outcomes and drawbacks, and it makes it tough to figure out which one will give the best outcome. Choices like these should be difficult, and after picking all three and seeing what would happen before going with what I thought was the best route, I can definitely say all of these outcomes are well thought out. Check out episode 2 of my Outcast Let's Play to see what I actually chose. The Help Yuri and I Love You choices later on in the mod were also pretty dang cute, even if they didn't mean too much. And not only that, but the choice to confront the bully or stay silent later on when it's brought up also offers options for people on both sides of the moral and emotional spectrum for when it comes to handling such bully-like encounters. I personally chose to confront since that's what I would do, and I haven't yet explored the staying silent option yet and see how that changes things. But in either case, depending on your outlook, both options may be entirely valid in their reasoning. Along with the choices, the occasional double take moments were a great touch that added a bit of question to what was going to happen next. I wouldn't exactly call them subversions per se, since they're still likely to happen and they're not like an actual subversion where it throws you around. But it's not as likely as what actually does happen. Along with that, the tension building moments, the moments where it's obvious what's going to happen, but you're still waiting for it to happen, it gives you that level of suspense and it increases that bit of nervousness and anxiety and anxiousness and excitedness for what's about to happen next. All in all, Doki Doki Outcast is definitely one of the better mods put out by the community as of late, and I hope other mods coming out will be able to take an example from Outcast and its techniques to better construct a convincing and compelling narrative, with tight writing and realistic scenarios that don't feel too contrived, cliche, or pretentious. This is overall a very great mod, and I applaud the entire team who worked on it for making it the way it came out. 10 out of 10 would recommend! I hope this review was well made, and I hope it gave you some insight into what I think about what is possibly the greatest Yuri mod to come out of the Doki Doki Literature Club modding community. I hope you all enjoy this video overall, and I will see you next time.